So you might as well pack up your bags and head your ass on back up north where you belong. Boy, go! Oh!
And you get this straight, shit kicker. Don't you go mistaking me for some whole other body. You got your brains in your dick if you think we're just gonna fade away. We're gonna be here till this thing's finished. How about you, Deputy? Is that gun just for show? Or do you get to shoot people once in a while?
What is up, fellow film fanatics and movie buffs? This is a new show. I'm Bullet Blake, and I'm here with Professor Cinema. We're trying to kick off a new live series. We're going to do probably monthly, but we just figured we'd start off with a Gene Hackman kind of tribute show because his passing, we were big fans. We watched a lot of Gene Hackman growing up. So, I mean, this is just basically how we're going to go with it. We're going to do top fives. Each of us, actually, for this one, have completely different top five lists. So it makes it a little more fun. We used to do a show like this years ago. Ancient history now. So we're kind of feeling like picking it up again. So if you follow Film Fanatics and Movie Buffs on Facebook, you can keep up with us there, I guess, because we're probably going to do more polls and stuff for the next topic on that page. But yeah. So how you doing, Professor?
I'm doing all right. I'm excited to talk about Gene Hackman today. This should be a lot of fun. There's a lot of good movies to pull from.
Oh yeah. I mean, honestly, when I suggested this, I was like, I'm gonna have to rewatch like 30 different movies. So because I wanted to do this like the first weekend after he passed, or it sounded like a good idea, and then I was like, I don't really remember this movie. I don't remember that movie. I know I loved it, but I really have to revisit a lot of his movies, which was fun too.
Yeah, I got to revisit a lot of fun movies getting ready for this, and then I got to watch some movies that I've not watched before, and so this turned into a really fun experience in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, it was cool revisiting, to be honest, especially some that we watched a lot like growing up. We watched some of his movies so many fucking times, it's not even funny. So anyway, we're just gonna kick it off. We're gonna do your number 5 first, and yeah, if you guys want to comment or put in your suggestions on what your number 5 would be, go ahead.
Yep, and we'll start with my number 5 as Hoosiers, a classic, fantastic basketball film. It's a top-notch, built up from the ground all the way to the top. The acting is great. The dialogue is great. Gene Hackman, flawless always. Dennis Hopper, also fantastic in this movie. I love it. But I like basketball movies, and this one's a lot of fun.
You know, Hoosiers doesn't really do it for me. So I've never actually been a fan of actually basketball movies in general. So if it's sports movies, it's usually football or hockey. But I did
like hockey and football movies, but this is, I watched this one as a young kid, and it sort of it resonated with me because I saw, other kids being mentored by this hard-nosed son of a bitch.
I mean, I can understand. I've watched it. It's been a long time since I've seen it because, like I said, I'm not really a fan. But I did decide to try and revisit it. But it's just not the movie for me. So it wasn't gonna work for me to put it on my list. I don't even think it'd be in my top 10 or top 15 or top 20. I know that's crazy to most people, but it's just it's not my preference for Gene Hackman.
And that's fine. Not everybody's gonna have the same list. But what's your number 5?
My number 5 is actually probably something that a lot of people don't have on their top 5s or top 10s or top 20s. I don't know. Like, it is Behind Enemy Lines, which, and I did rewatch this because it had been some decades since I've seen it last, but it's fucking good. It still holds up. The jet pilot scenes are a little, dated. This did come out in like 2001, but Gene Hackman is a fucking boss in this movie. He does this great speech where they're gonna go get our boy back. It's It's a really good movie from beginning to end. It's got Gabriel Macht in it, and I was like, holy shit! I didn't even correlate that guy, because now I just associate him with Suits. Like, that's all I can picture him as is Harvey from Suits. So seeing him in this, and like, he's great in it. And Owen Wilson, it's such a different role for him to play too. I mean, he is kind of like a smart ass, sassy motherfucker, but it's like,
he doesn't normally do action.
Yeah, and it's like a serious action. It's like a war picture. It was good. Like, I was really into rewatching it, honestly. I'll probably pick it up on Blu-ray if they ever release it with like a nice slip.
Oh yeah, you gotta have the slip cover.
You gotta have the slip cover. You gotta have it. I remember owning that on VHS, so I think I got it for like Easter one year.
Yeah, I think you got it for Easter, because I think you got that for Easter, and I got Hoosiers that same year.
Yeah, it was like a Gene Hackman thing, because I don't know what our other brother got. I know it was Gene. It might have been Enemy of the State.
I think you got Crimson Tide.
Oh yeah, he did. Anyway, we're getting off on a tangent here. We're getting off on a tangent.
Yep.
So let's hear your number 4.
My number 4 it's an older movie, but once again has some great actors in it. We're going with Cisco Pike. It's got Chris Christopherson, Karen Black, Gene Hackman. It's just fantastic. But there's a caveat with this. If you're going in and you're expecting a modern style movie, it is not that. It is edited in a style where the cuts are very long. The dialogue sections can take a long time, and it's a very old school style noir film. So you got to be ready for it to feel a little bogged down, a little dragged out. But there's a scene where Chris Christopherson does not want to sell the marijuana for the crooked cop that Gene Hackman plays, and he just pistol whips him. Says, "No, you're doing it." And that's a fantastic scene between the two. And the fact that Gene Hackman plays this crooked cop with like a bad heart condition or something, and he acts weird. It is like, I'm used to him playing a bad guy, but this one was just weird, and it was just weird enough that I was like, I really like this.
I really, really like when he plays the bad guy. I think those are his better roles. I know, like, he does good in both, but I really love movies where he just like is evil. Like, I know this is just like a crooked cop situation, so it's not like the worst fucking thing he's ever played, but with him as a bad guy, even towards the end of his career, he was fucking brilliant in everything.
Oh yeah.
Everything.
And he had a reputation too, because directors, he just did not deal with bullshit. Like, he tore who did the Royal Tenenbaums? Was that Wes Anderson?
Yeah, I think so.
I think it was. And
that's one of the worst movies in my opinion. No offense to anyone who loved it.
And he was just tearing up Wes Anderson because he was a young kid and didn't quite know how to direct somebody who'd had that much screen time, that much acting time. And I think at one point Hackman had said that he only needs like 4 directions, more or less, or larger or smaller. And some directors try to give him too much or say, hey, let's try that again, but do this. And he just didn't play with that. He didn't do that at all.
And he doesn't seem like he would.
Yeah. But what is your number 4?
My number 4 is actually one of his best movies ever. Like, honestly, I think my top 4 is like primo, but it kicks off with Unforgiven.
Unforgiven is a fantastic flick. And another movie that just, the cast is flawless throughout the entire film.
It's so fucking good. I just rewatched it yesterday. It is so good. I could watch this movie once a year, I think. Just through and through, from beginning to end. And again, Gene Hackman, cop, or sheriff, I guess, crooked. He's a piece of shit in it. A piece of shit that you just want to see on camera more and more. Like, I want to see him on camera more than Clint Eastwood in this movie. He's so good in it, and more than Morgan Freeman,
his-
more than what's the other guy? The guy who played like
Richard
Dumbledore.
Harris.
Yeah, more than him. I wanted to see Gene Hackman much more in this movie because rewatching it, he's in it a lot less than I remember, but he's so good. He was so fucking good.
His character was just so compelling.
Oh, here we go. Top four from Ken Carlson. Bonnie and Clyde, French Connection, The Conversation, Superman, Hoosiers, Mississippi Burning, Poseidon. See, all good choices there. All good choices.
All good shorties.
Now
Bat 21 was fantastic also. I have an issue with Poseidon Adventure, mostly because I was in the Navy and I don't want to watch movies about sinking ships. I'm sorry. That's just me.
Like some of these were close to making it, but for my list, I think most people are going to be a little upset with my list because I do like every single movie on here, with the exception of Hoosiers, because it's just not for me. But yeah, there you go. Unforgiven for sure. I just think that this movie kicks ass. This movie fucking rocks, and it's still just as good today as it was in 1992. Is that when it came out?
Something like that.
92 or 93. It's still just as good. And I mean, obviously, I have an affinity for like westerns, so it's just gonna be towards the top of my list because God, he's good in it. He is so good in it.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, we'll move right along to your next pick.
Okay, my number 3 is Mississippi Burning. This movie is so good. And again, this movie came out before some of these actors really made it big. So this is really before Willem Dafoe had a big following behind his name. The guy in the clip who grabbed his balls, I can't remember his name right now. Michael Rooker. Yeah. One of his earlier films before he made a big name for. Yeah, and the guy who played the sheriff was the guy who played Chucky. Also did the voice for Chucky.
Oh my God! Why can't I think of it?
I can't think of it either. It doesn't. It's not a, but it's one of his earlier films also, and it's just they're all so compelling through this movie, and the story is flawless. The dialogue is just, I don't want to say it's melodramatic because it's not over the top, but it's so dramatic and it's so hard hitting. It's I love this movie.
Yeah, that's why I used it for the clip at the beginning because it's a perfect opening for this show, to be honest. So I was really into it. I did revisit that. It almost made my list. It came real close to being in my top 5. Let's see what else we got. Hold on. Mississippi Burning is brilliant. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Blockbuster late fee.
I mean, I miss those blockbuster late fees.
Oh, I miss blockbusters in general. Rumor is Disney gave criteria on the French Connection. It's a Fox title. So, I mean, yeah.
I'd love to have a 4K for French Connection.
Yeah,
I think that would be gorgeous.
Absolutely. Yep. I think so too. I think we're getting Mississippi
more
Burning
than likely, yeah.
Either this year or early next year.
Excited about that also.
Yeah. Absolutely. I guess we'll move on to my number 3.
Yeah, what's your number 3?
A movie everyone, I think everyone would put this in their, maybe not their top 5, but at least in everyone's top 10. It's Enemy of the State. And I remember the first time I saw this, which was on VHS years ago. I was a kid. It was so intense. And this was like the heyday of Will Smith just being fucking in everything, everything. It was so good. Gene Hackman kills it in this movie. He's so like blunt, straight to the point. Just like bam, bam, bam. Intense from start to finish. Again, another movie where he's not technically the star. Will Smith is supposedly the star, but it's a movie where I just was more interested in Gene Hackman.
Well, let's be honest. Hackman stole the show for this movie. Like,
Oh,
Will Smith should have been lower on the card. Let's just be honest. Even though they were trying to push Will Smith at the time, but
major.
Hackman, once again, was fucking flawless in this film, and it just the way he went after Will Smith's character and some of their, like, when they would get in each other's faces and they'd be yelling at each other and arguing with each other. I don't know how Will Smith was able to, like, stay nose to nose with him, because I feel like Hackman would just be super intimidating to try and get nose to nose with, at least at the time.
I mean, well, Will Smith has the arrogance about him. He can handle it, and he was like superstar at that time. But Gene Hackman, I mean, this is the movie that I think really, really put Gene Hackman, like, in my, like, child mind radar. Like, I was like, he's so good. Even as a little kid, I was like, damn, that guy is the real fucking star of this.
Well, this was a movie that would appeal to younger audiences. It introduced Hackman into younger audiences, like, because like, for me, it was the Superman movies. That was the first interaction that I had with him. And so that's what I know him from. And then you got him from, like, other things like this. And that's when you started paying attention. And, of course, we did movies all the time when we were kids. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think this movie did really, because obviously a lot of, like, I mean, as a kid, I didn't really watch 70s movies or even the early 80s stuff he did. And he was always an older actor. So he wouldn't have really been a blip for, what, 9-year-old, 10-year-old me. But this movie was so good that I think he became one of my favorite actors at that time. I guess that means we can move on to your number 2.
Okay, my number 2 is a movie that had a lot of drama that went with its release. So my number 2 movie is Night Moves. And this movie got into a lot of hot water. Because I believe this is the first movie with Melanie Griffith. And when they filmed it, she was 16 and they did nude scenes with her. And so they couldn't release it until she was 18. So they had to wait 2 years before they could actually release it. And there was a lot of flack about this movie. There was a lot of people were upset. Melanie Griffith tried to defend the role. It was a weird thing. I saw interviews about it. Gene Hackman stayed pretty quiet about that aspect of it. He just talked about his character, which his character was fantastic. An ex-football player that turned private detective who's hired to find a girl. And it is so all over the place. Like, and not all over the place in a bad way, but all over the place where you don't know what's going to happen, because this movie is so foreign to the way that we do movies now. And it is just so good. And Hackman kills it so well in this movie, playing it as the detective, trying to figure out what's going on, and then realizing he's in over his head with what he's doing. It's just chef's kiss.
Also, another one that almost made my top 5. It was real close. Actually, I think it was like number 7 when I actually, like, ranked them all out. So definitely a worthy pick for number 2. Definitely, I mean, I don't think most people, like, think of this movie when they think of Gene Hackman. In fact, I think most people think of his later movies in The French Connection and stuff like that. But this movie definitely falls by a lot of people. They don't really think of this. If you think of Gene Hackman, you're not thinking of this. You're thinking of Unforgiven. You're thinking of Mississippi Burning, French Connection, Crimson Tide, those types of titles. This one's so good.
But what is your number 2?
My number 2, honestly, my number 2 and number 1 were so close. I kept teetering which one was better, so I had to revisit both of them again. And I ended up landing with my number 2 being one of my favorite movies of all time, actually. A movie I watch once a year, and I have since I was like 12, at least once a year. I literally, and it is The Replacements. So good. I was obsessed with this movie. When I played football in school, like in middle school and stuff, I was number 16 because of Shane Falco, not because of a real football player, but because of Shane fucking Falco. I was so into this movie. She's so hot as a cheerleader. Gene Hackman is hilarious in this. And there's a scene where like him and John Favreau where he's like, give me the football. It's fucking good. And I mean, everything about this movie. It's one of the funniest fucking comedies I've ever seen. Every character is so unique. Like they basically were like, we need this character. They did a hodgepodge of every fucking personality they could have in this movie. I love this movie. I love it. So I'm talking myself into watching it like when I want to go to bed tonight so I can just put it on and fall asleep to it. It's so good. And it is by far like the best good guy Gene Hackman portrayal of all time. Like it's the best. He's so good in it. So good. And the rest of the cast too. Just everything about this movie. I love the whole 5 fucking stars.
Yeah, because you've got Keanu Reeves, of course. You've got Reese Ifans, who this is an earlier film for us with him because he hadn't done much American film at that point. But we almost didn't get Gene Hackman in this movie. Keanu Reeves took a pay cut to make sure that Gene Hackman could get his salary.
He did, I think Keanu Reeves took pay cuts for this and The Devil's Advocate around the same period of time because he wanted to work with De Niro.
In Devil's Advocate, he took a pay cut so that Pacino would stay.
Oh, Pacino, yeah. Like, and just because Keanu Reeves is fucking awesome, like, I mean, I'm going off of here, but I saw a comment today. There was like the only celebrities in the world with no haters, and it showed a whole bunch of celebrities that like are garbage human beings. And then the top comment was the only correct answer is Keanu Reeves, and it had 2,348 likes on that one comment because nobody hates Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, they might not like him as an actor, but everybody loves him as a person.
Yes. God, I love The Replacements so much. I watched it last weekend actually, but man,
I usually watch it every year right around Super Bowl time.
Yeah,
because it's a great movie to get yourself ready for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's like a fucking hype movie.
Oh yeah, but I did rewatch it again for this, and I still love it. Like the whole scene where he sees them dancing in the jail cell and says, if this ever happens again, you're not going to be playing on my team. But then he also is like, I would have loved to see the look on his face.
Yeah, when Martell got his ass kicked. I love that.
And let's also be honest too. The final like little soliloquy that he does as the movie ends, how he talks about there was no ticker tape parade, all that. That's a heart-wrenching speech. But they won, which you're still feeling good, but you're like, oh man, now they're going back to their normal lives. But it's still so good. He delivers it so well.
Yeah, I mean, he makes that movie, the finish, much more successful because otherwise, most people without Gene Hackman narrating it in the off, like as it's fading out, basically, it wouldn't have worked because everyone wants to see the championship game. We don't get that here. We don't get that here.
Yeah, we don't get it.
We just get the build up to it, and then the people who put all their effort forth to make it there, and then the other team crosses the picket line, so they're all back into play. And so basically, they didn't earn it, and they just get to play anyway. And that should infuriate people, but it doesn't, because everyone seems so like, all right, that was what we did. We came, we saw, we conquered. It's it. And Gene Hackman's narration at the end, it's so good. So good.
It just cinches it tight and lets the movie end with grace.
Yeah, I mean, everything about that movie, everything about that. Keanu Reeves' speech when they're in the fucking like field and he's like, chicks dig scars, everything about this movie. This movie is a 5 out of 5 movie.
One of my favorite scenes in the movie too is when the sumo wrestler eats eggs before the game and then vomits on the field, and then they just all shimmy to the other side. They shimmy away from it.
Oh yeah, because he throws up, I throw up. Everything about it, so good.
Oh yeah.
Let's
get into our honorable mentions now.
Yeah. Yes, you got a couple?
I do. I have 2 honorable mentions.
Okay.
The first one I'm going to lead with is Superman, because him as Lex Luthor is flawless. I don't care what anybody says. There is no convincing me that there is a better live-action Lex Luthor. Although I do like Kevin Spacey. Although we were not supposed to talk about Kevin Spacey anymore.
I mean, he's making movies again, so Anyway, Superman's a good pick. It's a good pick. My first honorable mention would be The French Connection.
It's a fantastic movie.
Yeah. I mean, I'm warning everybody right now because it's not going to be either of our number 1 picks. And I know some people out there are going to be like, why the fuck was The French Connection not their number 1 or even technically in our top 5s? But it's an honorable mention because it is like quintessential, like,
yeah,
Gene
it's
Hackman.
The one that everybody expects, like that one, and then like Conversation, and just we're trying. We've got favorites, and it's okay that they're not, all everybody's favorites. He's the best part of those Superman. Come on now. Those Superman movies were not stupid.
Right on, Brian. You keep talking that shit. That's the way to go. Those Superman movies are so not
Superman 1 and 2 was written by Mario Puzo, who's the same guy who wrote The Godfather, and you can't tell me those are bad fucking movies.
I was never a Superman fan. I've never ever. I don't think I'm really a Superman fan now. I like Henry Cavill as Superman, but there's certain movies that are fine over time. Superman has been redone so many times and done better. And I know I'm making you mad, but it's just not. They're so bad, bro. They're so.
You guys are making my eyes twitch, man.
If you had to watch Superman 2 or Man of Steel, what you picking to watch right now, this very moment?
Superman 2.
You're a fucking liar.
I'm not a liar. I will watch Superman 2 over Man of Steel. Now, don't get me wrong. I love Henry Cavill as Superman. I think he's a great Superman. I think he would have done better if they would have written an actual Superman movie. But I love Superman 1 and 2. And I like Superman 2, the weird wrong cut and the Richard Donner cut. I love both of them.
The weird wrong cut. Sometimes the wrong cuts are the right cuts, No,
the wrong cut is never the right cut.
See, I have a movie where this is going to be off of the Gene Hackman thing because we're talking about it, and there is a movie where the director's cut, and it's not always the case that the director's cut is better. I know that most people would think that the director's cut is better in this movie's case, but I do not, and it is Daredevil with Ben Affleck. Why don't they
have a wrong opinion every once in a while?
Why don't they release both fucking versions on HD? I can literally only watch the original version on DVD.
Mm-hmm.
That is the version I saw in theaters. That is the version I equate to the movie, and yet the director's cut, although it is
hold on a second. You were giving me shit about Superman. Daredevil is a bad movie.
Oh no!
It is legitimately bad.
No,
they fucked over Bullseye so hard.
Okay, Bullseye is the problem, but they make up for Bullseye with Michael Clark Duncan as Kingpin. Pretty much the greatest portrayal of Kingpin. Like,
honestly, that was probably the best part of the entire movie.
Oh,
it wasn't Ben Affleck.
I mean, Ben Affleck's the best part of Batman. Oh, he is. He's the best Batman we've ever had. Sorry, all you Baleman fans, but Batfleck beats Baleman.
I'm still hardcore on Keaton.
There we go. There you go. Yeah, Superman movies are stupid.
He's probably talking about Daredevil too.
Oh no! Brian loves Daredevil. He loves it. He loves it. Comment you love it, Brian. Okay.
Okay,
Tangent
and
over.
now my other honorable mention. It is such a funny movie. It is so good. Some actors are extremely, extremely funny, and Gene Hackman plays the perfect straight man. I don't think he could get a better straight man in a movie, and that's The Birdcage. That is an awesome movie.
Yeah, actually, I'm okay with that. I'd rather watch that than the old Superman movies.
I'd rather watch The Birdcage than Daredevil.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I can acknowledge that the Birdcage is fucking great, but I mean, obviously Daredevil was just like a part of my childhood. It is nostalgia, like Brian said with your Superman. The Daredevil movie is nostalgic for me, like your Superman is nostalgic for you.
So take those nostalgia glasses off.
No. But Ben Affleck is an Oscar-winning director, so
Which has nothing to do.
Anyway,
But anyway, what's your other honorable mention?
My other honorable mention is Wyatt Earp, which was really close to actually being on my top 5, but he's just such a small part in the movie that it didn't feel like. I actually think I have it rated like on Letterboxd higher than I have Behind Enemy Lines, but it just didn't fit because he's only in the beginning of the movie, even though he does have some badass fucking scenes, like the speech at the table where he talks about how family blood matters and everyone else is just a fucking stranger. That's fucking intense. To like the whole family's just sitting there just eating his words, just like, yes, whatever you say is the word, the truth, and the light. But it like, and then the scene where he like gets him like riled up and gets him out of the fucking pit he's in towards like, I don't know, like the half-hour mark or 45-minute mark, because that movie's fucking long.
It's near the end. If you watch it on a VHS, it's near the end of the first tape, so about the hour and a half mark.
But honestly, Wyatt Earp is underappreciated because it came out the same year that fucking Tombstone did. And it's not as good as Tombstone, so I'm not saying that. So don't go crazy on me about that. It's not as good as Tombstone, but Wyatt Earp has some good aspects that I wish were in Tombstone. And it does have Dennis Quaid as Doc Holliday, and I know he doesn't compare to Val Kilmer because Val Kilmer's Doc Holliday's one of the greatest cinematic characters of all time, probably in the top 5 cinematic characters ever. But Dennis Quaid does a good job.
I'm sorry, but anybody who looks at that movie and watches the scene where Dennis Quaid goes on that monologue about how you shouldn't be ashamed of what you are or who you are, and he goes on about how he was a dentist. There was a time, I can't do the gravelly voice anymore, but I did that whole monologue for you, and you were shocked because I sounded exactly like Dennis Quaid. But you can't listen to that and not say, okay, Dennis Quaid is also killing it. He might not be quite up there, but he is also fucking killing it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Wyatt Earp is underappreciated simply because Tombstone came out the same fucking time. It really, really affected it because it's like 2 movies, same. One's more, I don't know, cinematic, I guess, blockbuster worthy almost, and one's more documentarian. It's just. It also has Michael Madsen. I'll say that, and he's my favorite actor of all time. So
behind the scenes too, those 2 movies were fighting over resources.
I believe that. I believe that through and through.
There was a point in time where Wyatt Earp needed horses, but the film crew for
Bro, you're losing me here.
The film crew for Tombstone had taken all the available. I hate everything about what people are saying.
This is crazy. Adam West is not the best Batman, man. Like, that's just factually inaccurate. I mean, he's entertaining, but he's not the best. But anyway, back to what you were saying.
Tombstone was stealing all the horses in the area. Well, they weren't stealing them. They had hired all the horses right under the noses of everybody who was trying to make Wyatt Earp. And it turned into a thing. But that's neither here nor there anymore.
It's a great movie. It's a great movie. It needs to be watched. It needs to be appreciated more. That's all I'm saying. I really would have had it on my top 5. Like, I do think it's a better movie than Behind Enemy Lines. It's just not a better Gene Hackman movie.
Mm-hmm.
But that brings us to our number 1. So, are you ready to talk about your number 1?
I am ready to talk about my number 1.
It's not
my
Superman.
Number 1. It is not Superman. It is not. It's not any of the Superman movies.
Is it a predictable one? Is the audience going to know what your number 1 is? We already told them it's not French Connection.
We've told them it's not French Connection, and I think we've mentioned the movie several times already in the stream. But my number 1 is Crimson Tide. Denzel Washington, Gene Hackman, Viggo Mortensen, just you can feel the intensity with all these actors as they're stuck in this sub, and Denzel's trying to do the right thing. Gene Hackman's trying to follow orders. Viggo Mortensen's torn between the two of them. It's so good. But when I did see the dog piss on the deck, I wanted to kill the dog.
You can't kill the dog. It's not allowed.
I know you're not supposed to do that, but you're also not supposed to bring your fucking dog on a submarine.
See, I mean, I do think that Crimson Tide is one of the most predictable titles that everyone would just assume people are going to have on this list, and I'm shocked that it's not on mine. I acknowledge that it's one of his better movies. It's just not a personal preference. It's just not one that I really find a lot of enjoyment revisiting. And I mean, obviously, you've been on subs before, and I have not. So it's not that I love Viggo Mortensen, and I love him in this movie, and I love Denzel Washington, and it's another movie again where Gene Hackman just fucking nobody else matters. Nobody else matters because this movie could just exist if he just spoke for 2 hours.
He's extremely good at playing characters that, oh God, he's extremely good at playing characters that just walk in and take charge of a situation. He's extremely good at being the guy who knows what's supposed to happen and how it's supposed to happen, and then he's going to make it happen that way. He's good at that character type. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, nobody can argue that. He was good at that character type.
Well, yeah.
Now, we're going to do my number 1, which is...
To be expected?
You know what? If people know me, they probably know that this is the number 1 for me because just like my favorite genres and stuff. But it's obviously Welcome to Mooseport.
You are a fucking liar.
Yes, the fuck I am. It is not that movie. It sucks that he ended his whole acting career with that movie. That really blows. But this movie is my all-time favorite fucking movie of his. And it is The Quick and the Dead. So fucking good. I've actually watched it twice this past week because I put it on and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna kind of glance over it because I was initially gonna clip a scene from it, and then I was like, no, I just got too distracted to even timestamp it, and then I just watched it again because it's a good fucking movie. It's honestly one of the best. I mean, I say modern, even though it's from 1995, best modern westerns that we've had in decades. Honestly, it's so good and so stylistically, like Sam Raimi. It's very Sam, like it's very him. The way they did the gun fights and all that shit. But Gene Hackman, again, as a bad guy, who
and remember, when you watch the movie, people, you have to find the Delta 88 because it's in there.
It's in there. It is in there. It's so good. Leonardo DiCaprio's like fucking young as hell in this movie.
Oh yeah.
Sharon Stone actually had to fight to get him in the movie. Sharon Stone picked Leonardo DiCaprio to play that part. I don't know what their deal was. I know he's a lot younger than her, but Gene Hackman was amazing. Honestly, Russell Crowe, this is his first American movie ever.
And he killed it.
And again, it's Sharon Stone who got him the part as well. She basically created this cast around Gene Hackman. And luckily, Leonardo DiCaprio had the chops to be in this movie. Russell Crowe, so good in this movie. Sharon Stone, she's great in this fucking movie. But Gene Hackman, again, is the one you want to listen to talk when he shoots, spoiler, I'm going to talk spoilers. When he kills Ace Hanlon or whatever, Lance Henriksen's character, that scene is so fucking awesome. Like both hands, and then he lights the match, and then he's like, oh, you're fucking full of hot air, and just fucking executes him. So fucking awesome. It's just such a good fucking movie. And I feel like a lot of people probably guessed that because it's a Western, and spaghetti Westerns are my favorite. And this thing's pretty fucking close to a spaghetti Western. It's pretty close. As far as American movies go, this one really, really does the trick. It's stylistic as hell, but Gene Hackman as this badass motherfucker, you can't go wrong with this movie. And it's so good. I fucking love this movie.
It's a great movie. It just doesn't make my list.
That's fair. It doesn't have to make your list because your list is subpar to mine.
Sure it is. Yeah, whatever you say. You're the one who decided to put, what does Ants count?
Well,
I'd allow it. He's in it. He's a voice actor.
I kind of kept this to like the rules of our old show when we used to do it, where we wouldn't have that in there because it's animated and he's not actually like on screen. So we would have done like a separate category sort of for that, for animated movies. So I didn't include it, but otherwise it would have been in there because I fucking love Ants. I really, really enjoy it.
Be the ball.
Sylvester Stallone. It's great. As a kid, I liked A Bug's Life more, but revisiting those two movies, because I did 3 or 4 years ago, Ants is a much better movie.
It is. I prefer Ants over A Bug's Life. Yes,
it's so much better. It's more, I don't want to say it's more adult, but it just, Bug's Life just seemed like a kiddie movie. Like it's not for me. Ants was fucking dope. Okay, it's a good one. But again, he's not actually playing the part. He's just doing the voice for it. So I wouldn't include it for that. Maybe as an honorable mention, I could have thrown it in there because I think that's like the only cartoon he's ever done.
Hard.
Right?
It's hard to do a whole list of animated movies for Hackman because I think there's only like 2, 3.
I think there's only one. Isn't it just Ants?
The only one?
I have no idea. Honestly, there might be. I almost feel like
I know there's other things that he's done narration. Like in 2017, I think it was, he narrated a special documentary about the Marines because he was a Marine. I can't think of any. I can't think of anything else though.
I mean, now we're just gonna have to figure out what we're gonna do next. I don't know what category we're gonna do. You'll have to follow the fucking Facebook page. It's at the bottom. Film Fanatics and Movie Buffs. If you find that, we're gonna probably maybe
we'll come up with a couple of ideas and have a poll.
Yeah, so that way, or I might post that on my channel to see what you got. If you guys even like this, I don't fucking know. Like, this is the first time I've ever done anything live besides Voyage to the Bottom of the Barrel. So I don't know. It was fun. We're probably gonna get it more streamlined down the line, but I enjoyed this. This was a good way to kill an hour, 45 minutes. Yeah. But yeah, if you guys have any suggestions on what we should do, go ahead and comment down below suggestions for the next topic. And if people like this, we might do it more often than once a month, maybe twice a month, maybe every week.
Yeah.
That'll all be decided on how much we enjoy it or how much y'all enjoy it. So as always, just give this video a thumbs up so we know you liked it. Comment
and
below.
If you're not subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the channel.
Subscribe to the channel. But until next time, have a good day.